Welcome to StartupHakk. I'm Spencer Thomason, and here at StartupHakk, we love training software developers and building custom software solutions. So I do a lot of work as a fractional CTO. With over a decade of executive leadership and a solid 25 years in software development, I've mastered the art of transforming technology, teams, and products. So today we're going to dive into the recent CrowdStrike outage. We're going to break down exactly what happened with a post-mortem analysis. So if you've ever done a post-mortem, it's when things can go wrong and everybody needs to be really honest and have the opportunity to really take the time and break it down and figure out what happened. Well, I know this is still kind of ongoing, like now it's moved into the court of public opinion and legal and all kinds of stuff, and we'll go into that. But really grab your popcorn because this one is really a doozy. So let's dive in. Okay, so we're going to jump into exactly what happened with the CrowdStrike outage. So we're going to try to break this down and see what lessons can be learned, what mistakes were made. I mean, this is really a great opportunity for anybody in technology to kind of take a look at their own infrastructure, see where their weak points are, right? And make sure that we're really honest with ourselves and look at what happened here and see what lessons that we can learn. It's a lot easier to learn from lessons of other people than learn from yourselves. So on a seemingly typical Friday a few weeks ago, CrowdStrike experienced a massive outage that sent shockwaves through the whole tech world. It all started with what they call the dangerous null pointer exception. Now, for those of you who are wondering, a null pointer exception is basically your code's way of saying, I have no idea what's happening here, so I'm going to crash now. So this little tiny piece of code caused a ton of chaos, leading to a cascade of failures across their systems, the CrowdStrike systems. And the ripple effect on this was that because CrowdStrike failed and because Windows requires it to boot, then the problem is then Windows was doing blue screens of death all over the place. So you saw pictures of airport terminals, blue screen. Let's see if we can find some pictures here. You saw airport terminals all over the place with blue screens of death. Let me pull up some images here so you can kind of see the actual ramifications. You can imagine if you were going to the airport and you saw, most of these, like going to try to look at your flight and suddenly you see a whole bunch of, blue screens of death, right? This would make you feel super confident to want to go get on an airplane that day, right? And so, you saw lots of things like this where, hey, good old infamous blue screen at the airport, right? So there was a ton of this, and it seemed to really hit the airports more than anybody. You notice it as I just typed in, I typed in blue screens. But so the CrowdStrike outage definitely impacted the air, right? There was definitely no question that it impacted, and it seemed like it impacted Delta worse than anybody else. But, and so we're going to kind of break down exactly what happened. So the immediate impact was totally felt worldwide. So according to CrowdStrike, over 85 million computers were affected, causing disruptions in a lot of different industries. Airlines had to cancel flights, businesses faced operational halts, and IT departments everywhere went into panic mode. I know I texted a bunch of my friends in IT and security and was like, hey, how's your day going? And most of them I didn't get a response, or I got a response later in the day. But it was like a scene from a tech apocalypse movie, but without all the cool special effects. The incident highlights the interconnected nature of our digital world and the importance of robust fail-safes. Now, the thing about it is that the fail-safe here is what actually failed, right? That was the problem. So for developers, it's crucial to design system with resilience in mind, right? We need to make sure that we can't have a single point of failure on things, right? Or if we do, that we can handle it gracefully and come up with some kind of a plan. So what exactly went wrong? CrowdStrike's engineers traced the root cause back to a routine software update. Yep, you heard that right, a routine update. During the deployment, a critical null pointer exception slipped through the cracks, leading to catastrophic failure. So null checks, object reference set to the instance failure. This is a normal, nulls happen in coding. But as a developer, we always need to make sure we check for them, right? So one CrowdStrike engineer quipped, it was like finding out your car's engine failed because you forgot to tighten a single bolt, right? So you can imagine that a single bolt was loose and suddenly the whole car goes to kaput. And you're stuck in the middle of the freeway with cars flying around you, etc. So that's what's really happened here to CrowdStrike. So we need to make sure that we're doing thorough testing on code, that we have good processes for these to run to production. And so this is really important to make sure that that happens, right? Because we need to make sure that we really test stuff before it can make the production. And we need to make sure we have good processes in place to make sure that we have safety guardrails up around that, right? So the deployment process itself was another critical factor. CrowdStrike utilizes a continuous deployment pipeline, which is generally great for rapid updates. However, in this case, the automation didn't catch the error in time. So it's like setting your coffee maker to brew automatically but forgetting to add the water. The result was a lot of frustrated people with no coffee, and in this case, canceled airlines, affected travel, really the heaviest it seemed like. So it really emphasizes the need for automated testing if you're going to use CI/CD pipelines, or else manual checks and manual testing if you're going to have manual testing in your process. So there's a balance between speed and accuracy and in deployment, so you got to make sure you balance those right. Now, the ripple effect of the outage was huge. IT teams around the globe scrambled to mitigate the impact, and businesses faced significant downtime. One IT manager said it was like being in a war zone, but instead of dodging bullets, we were dodging error messages. So the outage underscores the importance of having robust disaster recovery plans and backup systems. For developers, this means designing architecture that can handle unexpected failures gracefully. The other part to this is making sure you have good contingency planning in place, right? Because CrowdStrike did respond, but let's talk about that. So communication during the outage was another area of concern. Many users reported delays in receiving updates from CrowdStrike, leading to confusion and frustration. I think this hit Europe a lot harder than it hit the US. By the time most of the US woke up, CrowdStrike had given at least some manual steps for how you could fix this. And because it was trying to pull these updates, and depending on which updates you were going to pull, a lot of times a reboot would fix it. So I know a lot of people were going into Azure instances and just kicking off reboots. There's IT professionals running around and manually rebooting computers. But in some cases, you had to actually sit down at the computer, boot into safe mode, delete a file, and then reboot, and then it would work. Now, it was a small and simple step, but if you do that times 85 million, that's huge, right? And so, a drop of water isn't a lot, but you throw it into a tidal wave. And in this case, it was definitely a tidal wave. So we want to make sure that we have crisis communication plans set up, right? To make sure you understand what happens when your system is down and make plans around that is absolutely critical for executives, for IT management, and for developers. Coming up with robust plans for when things go wrong is important and critical. Now, CrowdStrike's incident response team worked tirelessly to resolve the issue, but there are valuable lessons, right? They did respond quickly. I know even the CEO took to making a public apology before they'd even actually fixed it. And so their post-mortem analysis revealed gaps in their incident response protocols, and I guarantee you they have made some crazy strides to try to fix that. One team member noted, it felt like we were trying to fix a sinking ship with duct tape. And in the middle of the night, I'm sure that's exactly what it felt like. So it highlights the importance of regular incident response drills and having a well-defined protocol. Now, monitoring. Effective monitoring could have mitigated the impact significantly. CrowdStrike admitted that their monitoring system failed to detect the issue properly. It's like having a security system that only goes off after the burglars have left. So continuous monitoring and alert systems are vital to catch issues before they escalate. For developers, we need to make sure we invest in robust monitoring tools, and that's essential for maintaining a healthy system. I usually try to really make sure that we are doing logging, metrics, and monitoring, and that those are three very separate things. So now the recovery efforts were intense, and it required a huge coordinated approach. CrowdStrike's team worked around the clock to restore services and fix the bug and prevent future occurrences. It was like rebuilding a sandcastle after a tidal wave. It was time-consuming, but necessary. They also provided detailed remediation guidance to their clients to mitigate the impact, and they actually got those out pretty quick. And again, they pushed out the fix really quickly. A lot of computers were able to be fixed just by a simple reboot, but that had to be done manually. And then not only that, They, in some cases, you'd have to boot into safe mode, delete the file, and then reboot again, right? And that's certainly not an ideal plan. Now, some of this responsibility does also rely on Microsoft, and Microsoft has gotten after the EU, and we've started to see a whole bunch of blame game, and it's been kind of a fun game because CrowdStrike obviously shouldered the responsibility. They're like, look, we're sorry, we made this mistake, and I know they're fixing all their internal processes. Microsoft is saying, hey, like EU, you forced us to build in these fail safes that now weren't even safe and now caused all of this. So they're blaming regulation. And Microsoft's like, look, innovation would have stopped this, but regulation is forcing us to have these hooks in place so that we can do this, so that this could have happened, so that this thing is possible to happen. Now, Delta started a whole bunch of saber rattling and geared up all their lawyers, and they've moved to saying they're going to sue both Microsoft and CrowdStrike. Meanwhile, there's now, as of this morning, there's a class action lawsuit that started by Delta people by Delta customers who didn't get a refund of their flight or didn't like the way Delta handled it, and now they're gearing up to sue Delta. And then CrowdStrike has come back and said, hey, what the heck, Delta? Like everybody else was back up within a few hours. Why did it take you 2 days to get your flights restored? I think flights even were still affected the following Monday. And so they're like, Delta, your archaic systems were so bad that you were even worse than everybody else, and now you're trying to blame us for it. Microsoft's also jumped on that bandwagon, also blaming Delta. So there's blame just literally flying everywhere, and it's an interesting thing to see. So moving forward, CrowdStrike is definitely committed to improving their process and learning from the incident. They're enhancing their processes and their testing and improving monitoring, as well as their incident response strategies. So they said they're not just fixing an engine, they're upgrading the whole car. And so this incident serves as a powerful reminder to always make sure you're trying to improve your systems. It's really funny because CrowdStrike was like one of the biggest companies that nobody knew existed, right? There's like very few people. One of the companies that I consult for had just moved to CrowdStrike a little bit before, and another one I knew of had just moved to CrowdStrike after another security incident. So they'd moved to CrowdStrike, and then this failure happened. So it's been an interesting thing. What lessons did you learn from it? I know we're all taking lessons from this, and this is really kind of a worst-case incident scenario, right? And so there's lessons here for everybody to learn, and there's definitely lessons to go around. So what are your thoughts? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Who do you think's at fault here? Do you think CrowdStrike? CrowdStrike's obviously at fault. Do you think Microsoft? They're blaming that the EU's required these hooks be in place. Delta's saying, hey, if you guys have never done this, but then it took them so long to get back up. Like, what do you think? What are your thoughts? What things have you guys learned? Has this come into your corporation at all in some kind of discussion points? I'd be curious to hear what you guys think. Here at StartupHakk, we'd love to have a good discussion. I actually respond to all the comments myself, but we love to train software developers in our coding boot camps and to build custom software solutions for companies. So reach out, hit us up in the links down below, and make sure to like and subscribe, and we'll catch you guys next time. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel because we bring you lots of great tutorials and tips that every developer should know. See you next time.